Hello and welcome to this Orca Aware interview with John Hargrove, a former orca trainer with SeaWorld and star of the Blackfish movie. We're currently in Brighton at WhaleFest 2015. How are you doing, John?
Good morning. I love it here. It's beautiful.
Is it your first time at WhaleFest?
It is. It's my first time in Brighton also.
Oh wow.
Very impressed.
And are you enjoying WhaleFest? Is it what you expected?
It's more involved and it's more activity than I had anticipated, which is fantastic because it shows how involved people are and I hear it's even a larger turnout than last year.
Yes, very big.
Really?
Very big this year.
That's awesome.
We've moved venue to accommodate even more people this year, which is fabulous.
Shows that we're going in the right direction.
Yes. And on the WhaleFest theme, I'm going to go right in at the deep end. So John gave an amazing talk yesterday about his experiences and it was just insight as to your journey really and why you've made the decisions that you've made. And we had hecklers and we had people that were here to protest your talk. And I just wanted to ask you, what is your reaction to those hecklers? Because you were sort of put on the spot.
Yes.
And I thought that you answered really well and you were just honest, but now that you've had time to come away from that and think about it, what's your response to these people that have come on and questioned why you have made the decisions that you've made?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't mind at all debate. I don't mind people having a different opinion. That doesn't bother me at all. I can sit there all day long and have 100% respect for those people. But when people do what they did yesterday, I'm embarrassed for them, to be perfectly honest. It didn't affect me at all, and it didn't embarrass me. I was embarrassed for them because they came off just looking like complete unintelligent idiots. And then you saw the reaction of the crowd. I didn't even have to do anything because the crowd took care of them.
Yes.
And and I felt fully supported by the crowd, which meant a lot to me personally. But when someone comes up and pulls a publicity stunt like that, or whatever you want to call it, and it's just so unintelligent that it's embarrassing. So I don't think they accomplished anything.
Yeah.
I know they did. They actually, I take that back. They did accomplish something. They accomplished the exact opposite of what they wanted. So it just hurt their cause because it's showing people that these unintelligent people are going to harass and be assaultive and to people who are trying to speak. There's just a time and a place if you want to voice a different opinion and why, and that's not the way that you do it.
Can you just clarify what happened, obviously, for the people that weren't at the talk, who didn't see what these protested actually did?
Yeah, well, and it happened so quick too because everyone who worked here did such a great job in handling it. But I was talking about Alexis Martinez being killed by Keto and also Don Branchaw by Tillicum. I think it was in that area of the slides. And I think it was 2 girls. Was it 2 or 3 girls?
About 2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah, it was 2 or 3. And they ran out with a banner that they didn't even have time to completely open up yet. And the message, the only thing I think they got out of their mouth before they were pretty,
they were taken out pretty
abruptly
quickly,
taken
yes.
out, is that Hargrove is a hypocrite because I collected a paycheck from SeaWorld. Well, okay, first of all, of course I collected a paycheck from SeaWorld. I worked for them.
Yes.
So yes, I collected a paycheck. I've never said that I worked for free for SeaWorld, so that's a given. And I don't see how that makes me a hypocrite. It would make me a hypocrite if I were doing WhaleFest and then I was still working at SeaWorld and I was still collecting a paycheck. But that's not what happened. So I resigned in August of 2012. 7 days later, I shot Blackfish. And my definition of hypocrisy is not that at all. So I don't know what dictionary they're looking at, but.
Did you go into Blackfish thinking I don't agree with captivity anymore, or did you go into Blackfish just being honest about your experiences?
Oh, that's a good question because it was so fresh. I had just left, and I felt almost like we have this expression in the States, like a deer in the headlights. I don't know if you guys say that over here or not, but it was so fresh. It was the first time I was speaking out, and it's very, SeaWorld can be, and they have done that in decades past, very intimidating to shut trainers up and not to speak out, and legal threats and all kinds of things. And so I was nervous is this really the step that I want to take? I'm going to lose my friends that I've loved for 20 years or more, and I'm going to lose these animals forever that I love, that were most important to me. So I think at the time of giving the interview, I was so focused in my mind of just speaking about my experience. This was my career, and these are the horrible things that I saw, which are now making me want to speak out and say them. But it took me a while to gain better perspective, a bigger perspective, including like Rick O'Barry, Naomi Rose, Howard Garrett. I was never exposed to those people until after I left SeaWorld. And in fact, growing up through the SeaWorld system, we were taught that those people were the crazy people. So it was really kind of a context shift for me in a way, because then I realized, actually, these people are not only not crazy, they're actually very smart, and they know what they're talking about, and they're experts in their field. So where my world and my vision was very limited, I knew everything about killer whales in captivity, but the outside world, the natural world of the killer whale, I had to learn from these other guys. So at first, when I first spoke out, to answer your question, I was really just zooming in on my very narrow view of my life experience as a SeaWorld trainer.
So really, even as a trainer, you didn't really understand wild orca biology and wild orca welfare.
No, I did not.
And that should possibly be something that you would hopefully be incorporated into your training.
Especially, I was a trainer for 14 years over a 19-year period. You would think that would come in at some point, but it's not, because it's not important at all to SeaWorld or their shows or their business model. Well, why give people that information? Because then they may realize, well, wait, maybe they shouldn't be here. So you got to keep people away from that, and also then label those people as the crazy people. So it's all a very manipulative game, that they in the past have been very successful with, but I don't feel they're successful with it anymore.
And you also worked at Marineland Antibes in France, which for the UK, certainly that's the closest facility holding orca, and the only other facility in Europe holding orca is Loro Parque in Tenerife. How did your experiences at Marineland differ from your experiences at SeaWorld?
Well, it was myself and another SeaWorld trainer that they brought over there to basically give them a SeaWorld product. They wanted a SeaWorld type show. They wanted to swim with their whales. They had just built them the new stadium in 2000. And they had never swum with their whales before, so they brought myself and Lindsay over to teach killer whale waterwork and perform it in the shows, and then teach the most experienced French trainers how to safely perform waterwork. So we went over there with very much a SeaWorld mentality, but it's a radically different setup. They don't have near the financial resources that SeaWorld has. The filtration system, horrific filtration system. No chilling system on the water. At that time, we had no physical scale to weigh the whales. Train the whales to slide up on the scale, and you get the digital readout. So just to even manage their weights, their body weights, we had to do it just visually and behaviorally, going off behavior. Well, that's not a very precise way to manage the health of an orca. And SeaWorld, they have, like, on average, each park 4 on-site vets. We had one vet. He wasn't even in the country. He lived in the UK. So we would see him at most once a month or once every other month. And there was never any progressive treatment for the whale's teeth that were very, severely damaged. So it was a challenge, because it was not SeaWorld. And I don't mean that to promote SeaWorld. SeaWorld had all these flaws, but then Marineland, because they didn't have near the financial resources, had even more of them.
And when did you work at Marineland?
2001 and 2002. I left at the end of 2002.
And were you there for the whole period during that time?
Well, I took my holiday, so I had the 6 weeks, and then I negotiated in my contract an additional 6 weeks. So that's how I ran that. And originally I negotiated that I would have a total of 6 months off, so work 6 months and then take 6 months off. But then they, for more money, then it persuaded me to not take that extra 3 months, to only take the normal 6 weeks and then add just one more 6 week period. But you had asked me something too right before that. I forget now what it was.
It was how long in that period were you working?
Yeah, so and then during those 2 years it was it was just Lindsay and I who called all the shots at Killer Whale. We were both agent de maîtrise. We were supervisors. Lindsay was then promoted to assistant curator, which I think they call cadre in France. But yeah, we made all the decisions about the whales and who swam and when, which whales, which people, what we did. And we took a lot of chances too, because at that time those whales had never had trainers in the water with them before. So that was a very unique experience and very risky. And we had a lot of waterwork aggressions because of it. Something Marineland now denies, that they've never had an aggression, when anyone can go on YouTube and see one of the aggressions from August of 2009. So
which whale did that involve?
Freya.
And can you tell me a little bit more about Freya?
Well, Freya, actually, I loved Freya very much, and what was interesting about Freya is that we weren't so close in the beginning of our relationship. Well, she was the dominant whale and still is.
She's wild caught individual.
Yes, exactly, wild caught. I believe in '82 she was caught in Iceland, and she's the matriarch. And so usually, the matriarchs are the most aggressive and dangerous. And in this situation, very true. She reminded me a lot of Kasaka in California. She was like we call her the Kasaka of France. Very smart, but very controlling of her environment. And she had a lot of bad habits from just poor training techniques in the past that we had to work out of her. And in the beginning, and of course it was just Lindsay and I who were swimming with her, and we had a lot of major, very scary waterwork aggressions with her, where she would grab us and pull us under and do all these kind of things. But once I worked through those issues with her and she stabilized out behaviorally, she became like an angel. And I had the most amazing shows with her. And I hate to say that because I'm not promoting shows. I'm not promoting, killer whales in captivity for entertainment. But I had very special moments with her where I felt like I knew in our shows and in our sessions we were truly connected, and she was enjoying and having a good time, the best that she can in captivity, because it's such a horrifically sterile environment. But we grew to be extremely close, and I was closest to her of all the whales. So very sad to leave her.
In your opinion, how does the population in Marineland Antibes compare to the orca populations in some of the other captive facilities?
Oh, very similar. The way their social structures are set up, the hierarchies, the same. I would say the same. I mean, at SeaWorld, I should specify, it depends on which park, but especially if it's SeaWorld of California, the training protocols and techniques are a bit more strict and stringent, so you have whales that have much tighter control. So in that regard, I would say the whales, and two, there's a longer history with SeaWorld. You have whales that have been around for a long time and know the rules and have been taught the rules, while older whales, and we're at Marineland, it was at that time too, a new system, a new behavioral system for these whales. It just took them a while to really adapt to it and accept those rules and protocols as okay, this is our life and these are our rules now. So we had a lot more behavioral issues out of the whales in France, but that was to be expected at that time.
And they Shuka, who went to Six Flags in America and is now at SeaWorld Park. She originally came from Antibes? She
was born there. That was their first whale that was born, and she was underfed because they didn't know at the time. They still may not know, I don't know. But at the time they didn't know how much food to give a baby orca, and at the rate, because obviously it's going to continue to go up, and at what rate they would need to increase, and especially with no physical scale to weigh her on.
Yes.
You're just eyeballing it. So she was stunted. That's why she's so small. It's because she didn't get enough food when she was younger.
And her mother didn't feed her.
I'm trying to remember now, because Freya had Val, so Sharkan had Shuka, and it's been a while since I've, we're 2015 now, so it's been a while, but I know Freya with Val, because they were locked into a vac pool together for like 2 years, Freya and Val, because Freya was so disruptive and shit. This is before Lindsay and I got there. And because Freya and Val were just locked into these 2 vac pools, so they wouldn't disrupt the shows, Freya then became, Val would become aversive to her. So she would try to split out of a gate, even years later, to get away from Val.
And Val's a male.
Yeah, it's a male, and it's her son.
Yes.
But because she had been, you can imagine if someone had trapped you in some small room, some space, I mean, even if you love this person, after 2 years, you're going to get me the hell out of here. I need to get away from you for a little bit. So we saw that. But so for the mothering with Sharkan and Shuka, I can't remember exactly how great or not great Sharkan was with Shuka when she was little. Because when I worked with her, Shuka was 8 at that point. See, Val was 6 and Shuka was 8, I believe, when I first started to work with them. So I didn't see a lot of interaction with Shuka and her mother that I would naturally see with the whales at SeaWorld.
Yeah.
So.
And Freya's got a white scar on her side.
Yes.
On her left flank.
Yes.
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 Do you know where that scar came from?
I don't know who gave it to her, but I was told she was branded, essentially, like we would brand cattle. Do you guys do that in the UK?
I couldn't tell you, in all honesty. My specialty is orca, and outside of that realm, not so much.
Well,
but I do think that certainly there are regulations that are branded. So.
Branded. So essentially, I was told she was branded in a way. I don't know why, or why they felt the need to identify her that way. And I don't know if it was Marineland who made that choice, or if it was whoever captured her and then sold her to Marineland, but it was a branding issue. And so that white circular thing that you see is scar tissue, where her pigment, she was burned so deeply that the scar tissue and the pigment never came back.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so very, very sad, very, very archaic.
Do you think it would still cause her pain today? Or?
No, she didn't show any level of sensitivity to it. I mean, we would body examine it. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Do you feel there's a place for former trainers, or even current trainers, in the potential rehabilitation and even release of suitable orca candidates?
Absolutely. I think if they, came on board and believed in that mission, they certainly have the skill set behaviorally to accomplish what we need to accomplish behaviorally to successfully reintroduce animals into the wild, or if, like Rick O'Barry just said in his talk, if they can't be successfully reintroduced, retired. And there are behavioral ways that we need to get there. So why not bring on your best behavioral people? Handpick the best people to accomplish this.
Yes.
But of course, they have to believe in that. And so that's the question. Do they morally and ethically believe that captivity is right, especially for entertainment and profit, or are they opposed to it? If they're opposed to it, or they eventually come on board to that, then I think there would be excellent tools and the right choices. I mean, you don't want to use people that don't have any animal experience and no training to try this undertaking, so I think that they would be ideal, and then these people are still accomplishing something great and living a life with animals, but you're doing it in a way that gives these animals the dignity that they deserve, not in a concrete tank for shows for greed and profit and exploitation.
Brilliant. And lastly, you've just released a book, or it's just about to be released. Obviously, we've learnt a lot over the years from different documentaries like The Cove and Blackfish, and of course the book by David Kirby, Death at SeaWorld. What additional information could we learn from your book?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, and I think David Kirby's book is a good book. It gives a lot of information, and he wrote it from a way and a perspective that I couldn't, because he's a journalist. So what I think that I can contribute is that my book is written from the trainer's perspective. So I wrote it because that was my career, that was my life. And I set out when I wanted to write it, I did not want it to be a tell-all book against SeaWorld. I was not going to be hateful to anyone. I was not going to strike back at someone, even if they had said something, I don't want to say hurtful, because I don't really get hurtful by those types of comments anymore, but damaging or, defamation. Yeah, in some way. So I was just like, look, I'm going to write about my career, my 14 years, that was spread out over those 19 years. I'm going to give you all the highlights, and I'm going to give you all the lowlights. So you just have the whole story, good and bad, and then you draw your own conclusions. But what happened was, as I got deeper and deeper into the book, all these things that were just so horrific that happened in my career, and the culture of it, the culture in our animal training program with trainers, what we did with the whales, the level of greed and exploitation, it was all the truth. So I put it in the book. So it did become a tell-all book, but just naturally. But I was also very careful that I didn't set out to specifically attack any one person. I just spoke the truth, and the attack is on the corporation, that are capturing these animals, artificially inseminating these animals for the profit, and disguised as conservation through education, when we all know there is no education in those shows. It is an entertainment-driven show. They've made that very clear. And so I just wanted to expose it and just say, this is the truth. Whether you're pro-captivity or anti-captivity, whether you like it or not, this is what happened in my career. This is what I saw. This is what I did. So.
And do you give us any insights that we perhaps haven't seen from Blackfish and from Death at SeaWorld?
Yeah, there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there about trainer lawsuits, trainers who were nearly killed, that people haven't heard of, and they sued. They were forced into settlement, gag ordered. My own personal waterwork aggressions that I suffered. Also really incredible, meaningful relationship moments that I had with the whales throughout my career. Things that I witnessed that just really just shined on such an incredible intelligence with these animals. And I worked with them for so many years, and there were still times at the end of my career I was absolutely amazed by the level of intelligence, to the point where it was scary. Like you almost felt like you were watching an alien being of some sort, because the intelligence was so great. Like the problem solving that you just saw them work out in their own mind, some of it we couldn't do. So you're like, I just witnessed this animal problem solve something that I couldn't problem solve. And I've been working with them already for 10, 12 years at some point. So they were always still surprising you what they were capable of. And that just goes to show you that we have no idea still what they're capable of. And how sad is that too, because like Lori Moreno talks about and speaks about in Blackfish, and the brain and the part of the brain that controls emotions. So how incredibly sad that if they're feeling even worse pain than we're even believing today, and we find that out in 5 years or 10 years from now. I mean, how horrifically sad for these animals that's what we've done. We've taken their life for profit and for greed and for people to be entertained. We've sacrificed their life for that, and I think that's absolutely disgusting.
Thanks, John. And we can find your book online?
Oh yeah, so it's released. Macmillan is my publisher, Palgrave Macmillan, and it comes out in the United States and Canada March 24th, so a week away, well, right around the corner. And then my publisher just sent me an email just the other night, because they were trying to work out the UK deal. So Palgrave Macmillan secured the worldwide English rights. And then the last email that I got, because I was trying to follow the thread, was because they were saying how quickly is it available in the UK, and they said it could be as quickly in the major retailers as this Monday. Now I don't know if they meant tomorrow. Tomorrow's Monday.
It is tomorrow. Tomorrow is Monday. We're just losing track of the days.
I know. So I don't know if they were meaning tomorrow or
next week.
Yes, because I was thinking, well, that would be odd if it would be released a week in the UK, a week earlier in the UK than the US. But I mean, whatever.
It's possible that it might be.
Whatever. Those are the business minds. They take care of it, so it's certainly possible. But and it'll be ebook, audiobook, and then
it's available on Amazon and.
Yes, Amazon. Your major in America, our major retailers are Barnes and Noble. So I'm sure whatever your equivalent is here, but so it'll be in bookstores also, not just.
And it's called John.
It's called Beneath the Surface, Killer Whales, SeaWorld, and the Truth Beyond Blackfish.
And that's by John Hargrove.
That's by me.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, John, for coming to do this interview.
This was awesome. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. And if anyone does have any questions that we'd like to email in, please do get in touch with us. You can find the email address on the website. Thanks, John.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
And I'll see you later.
Yeah, see you later.